So I'm at the shop today and it was quite busy this morning, but it's gone quieter this afternoon. So I am doing some sewing. I have this little project that I've been working on in the quiet moments in the shop. It's one of my Delicate Savage pieces. Delicate Savage is do I call it a design or do I call it a theme within my designs, which was based on I watched a documentary about tribal clothing and how different tribes around the world would make clothing before sewing machines were introduced into their communities, before kind of modernization of clothing, and how they would make their clothes from animal skins, furs, that kind of thing, and how they would make the threads and the actual needles to actually stitch these pieces of whatever they had, whether it was woven threads from wools or whether it was animal skin and fur, and threading them together to make garments. So I became very, very interested in that, and then I thought, well, how could I interpret that in a modern way in modern fabrics? So what I do is I take very kind of stretchy jersey kind of elasticated fabrics, and then I actually stitch all of the seams together by hand using very thick wool, and because of the elasticity in the fabric, it actually creates a whole other dimension. It gives the seam a life. So you can see where it's kind of like a wiggly worm kind of feel. So that is the actual seam of the garment. But then I can also use that kind of procedure to then make features within the garment, so drapes and folds, and stitch them into place using the actual wool. So what I'm doing actually is I'm making something quite structural, quite a structured garment from elements, fabrics and items that would not be seen normally as structured. Because once they're finished, I always start them off and think, oh, this is awful, and then if the end result is quite dramatic and quite kind of, people have looked at me and said, well, how on earth did you actually make that? In an age of mass production where items are basically cut out by computers and then very, very quickly stitched on industrial machines, people can't really get their heads around actually somebody sitting and actually hand stitching something from start to finish. They do take weeks to make, which is why I usually keep them sort of at hand when I have a quiet moment, and I'll do an hour or so on them, which then also helps in the actual design process because it's a longer process and so different ideas come at different times depending on how I'm feeling or how inspired I am at the time. So the name Delicate Savage came from the fact that the fabrics are actually quite delicate, but the process of stitching them together is quite a kind of a raw, brutal, savage way of stitching. So I've finished the outline of the sleeves, so that will be a sleeve. And then that is the sleeve on the other side, and that is the shoulders and the neckline. So stay tuned for updates on the Delicate Savage piece. So also this week I've added some more vintage into the shop, some vintage jewellery and some new vintage pieces on the rails. I've still got all these beautiful prom dresses. And I also managed to get some new pieces onto the website store as well. So yeah, it's been a good week here at the bazaar, and tomorrow I'm going out on a little trip to one of my favourite places, and I'm going to take you with me.